Now that we've got that idea, that first part out of the way, that we know active learning is something that we want to do, or we know that something is we should do, or at least do more than we're currently doing now, then we have to think about space, because you have a unique opportunity that very few places have, where you have this phenomenal brand new facility that's going to go online, that's going to allow you to do all sorts of interesting things. And so the question, though, is in that process is, well, what's the evidence that changing our space does anything in the first place anyways? I mean, we've been teaching this way in rooms like this forever, or at least seems to be forever. Why do we have to change it? Why can't we create a bunch more lecture halls and off we go? So I think in order to think that through, we have to start at the beginning and think about something called the built environment. Everything we do and every place we interact is a built environment. What it means is that someone came up with the idea of the space that you're standing in or doing and had a particular intent and design about how you were supposed to behave in it. That's what architects do. Architects design experiences. And anybody who's ever been in different sort of art museums is a good example, know that there's careful care taken to exactly how you're supposed to experience that particular space. And our campus is no different than that. Our campus is designed a specific way. Here's the path you're going to take. Here's the door you're going to take. Here's the way that you're going to come in the classroom. Here's where you're going to sit. Now, mostly what I'm talking about is the formal learning spaces idea. So informal learning spaces, i.e. where students are kind of on their own, working on their own, that's not really what I'm talking about right now, but a lot of the ideas and the principles apply to that. What I'm really talking about is these formal learning spaces, classrooms or teaching labs, where people are getting together to at least with some sort of agreement about what they're going to do and working on those ideas and working on that kind of learning. So there are three things about space I want to talk about. One is space impacts perception and space impacts performance. And as well, I'll get to a couple of other things as well related to space. But the first thing I want to mention is that space, we know, impacts our perception. We can change the space and change your perceptions within that space. A good example is here is a room that looks like it doesn't have a floor. This is designing the space to give you an experience of no floor, as an example, or give you an idea that there is a river that you're flowing down when there really isn't. So you can change the environment and impact your own perception. Another great example of this is a building that looks like it doesn't have a corner. It's designed almost as an optical illusion to give you the sense that you can almost see through the building because of the way it's mirrored. Now, take a look at that for a second and tell me, how many people see it moving? Okay. Now, I can assure you it's not moving. But our brain is interpreting this particular slide as having moving dots on it. So our brain's filling in sort of things behind the scenes, knowing that we can do things to make your brain perceive things differently. It's kind of creepy when you think about it. That you can change things around your experience to change your own experience in that environment. Straight lines or crooked lines? Straight lines. They look crooked, but they're not. Same sized orange circle or different sized orange circle? Same? Yeah. So you know the tricks. You probably have done those perception courses and studied psychology and got all these wonderful little illusions. But it's amazing how easily we can trick the brain into thinking something else when it's not in fact the case. My favorite one is this one, is what's color of the dress? Now, I don't know if any of you got caught up in this wonderful internet meme, but this was like an enormous internet war that started over the color of that dress, with people analyzing pixels and arguing. It's either white and gold or blue and black. Okay, so blue and black or white and gold. I can only see gold and white. I cannot see blue and black, but people tell me they can see blue and black. All right? So there you go. So you can see blue and black. I see just white and gold. And what's really interesting is that we're both looking at the same dress, okay, perceiving something totally different. Now, when you think about that perception and what sort of simple things like light and color can do to your experience, you don't have to look very far to look at the research of the impact on learning of that. Now, if any of you have kids, you probably have heard of the horrors of blue light, right? The horrors of blue light, like don't use your iPad before bed, you're going to be up for 3 hours, and right? This is the word. And what's really interesting is that there's absolute evidence that this is the case. Blue light, it comes from a particular spectrum that activates your brain. It messes up your circadian rhythms, which is why if you're reading an iPad that has that bright blue light, it will actually wake you up and get you excited right before bed. So that's why they have the night shift on all the phones, and that's why they tell you to try not to use a computer right before bed as an example. But what they've actually done is some interesting studies about looking at blue light enriched classrooms. So this is giving classrooms and lights in the classrooms the opportunity to change the hue and intensity about what kind of color the lights are emitting. So by using actually blue light to the advantage of learning, so saying, well, in the afternoon at 3 o'clock, we're going to crank up the blue light to get people to sort of be a little bit more active. And it turns out there's absolutely evidence for this. So in other words, what they found is that beneficial effects of blue enriched white light on students' performance, so that students were faster cognitively by changing the light that they were have access to. So there's no question that space and color and lights and the environment can have an impact on the learning process that we have. This is just one example when you're talking about lighting. So the lighting that's being chosen by the architect, you should have a thought about what kind of lights and who controls the lights and how can I turn certain ones on and certain ones off and how can I change the lights to support the learning I want to do if I'm going to do a particular activity. What kind of color of lights do we have? Things like that. The second is space impacting interaction. And this is the research evidence for why I hopped off the dais as a good example. So there's a really interesting area called proxemics. And what proxemics talks about is the connection between the distance between people and the types of interactions that they have. So for example, the 12 foot to 25 foot. So if the person on the left, the blue person on the left might be me. 12 foot to 25 feet puts people in a public space. So once we get past maybe the 4th row onwards, you're all in a public space. I can't really see your eyes. I have a trouble looking at your facial reactions. Are you angry with me? Are you not paying attention? Or is something wrong? Or are you bored? Or are you excited? I really have no idea. And the idea that the public space, I'm in a performance mode. I'm performing regardless of what you do. You have almost no interaction with me, and it's very, very hard. Other than standing up and leaving, I really can't figure out what you're interested in or what you're doing. The next chunk here is this social space, and this is the 4 feet to 12 foot. So within that 4 feet to 12 feet, I can see your eyes, I can see if you're looking at me, you might have a little twitch of confusion, I can tap into that. Suddenly I have a lot more feedback as an instructor about what's going on. Likewise as students, if you're within that 4 foot to 12 foot range, how important that is to be able to get feedback from each other. Then we have the personal space. And this is, when you get a lot closer. So you might be within that sort of bubble, you can start to see people sweat maybe a little bit. So maybe they're a little bit more concerned about why are you so close? This is a keynote, you're not supposed to be near me. But that personal space, it's the difference of the dinner table. Why do we not have a dinner table that's 30 feet long? We have a dinner table that's small. It's within that 1.5 to 4 foot sort of connection. Now, intimate space, we hope we're not involved in intimate space in a classroom, but just to give you an idea, the intimate space, you get things like pheromones, body heat, stuff that is a lot different in terms of feedback from people. Now, what's really interesting is if we look at our classrooms, is how many classrooms students are in the 12 foot to 25 foot space. They're in the public space. They're so far away, you can't tell at all what they're looking at, what they're feeling, what they're interested in. You might have a balcony where they're in the way back. You can never get to them if you wanted to. It's also why you want to move. The cameraman's going to kill me. Why you want to move and move around that room to be able to get closer to people to make that kind of contact. And there's a very different experience when someone's talking from 25 feet away and when someone gets kind of inside your personal space is right next to you. You sort of get the whoa, and it allows for engagement, it allows for attention, and changes a whole bunch of focus. So I think we need to think about this when we design our classrooms, because how can we design our classrooms so no student is any more than 12 feet away? Ooh, now that's a good challenge, and that's something we have to think about.